Today, we tell you about the real case of JonBenét Ramsey, one of the most controversial unsolved events in the history of the United States. JonBenét Ramsey, a 6-year-old girl, was found dead in the basement of her home in 1996. Her death has been highly controversial and has baffled investigators for almost 30 years. Stay to learn her terrible story. JonBenét was born in Georgia on August 6, 1990, and moved with her family to Colorado when she was only 1 year old. She lived with her father John, her mother Patsy, and her brother Burke, 3 years older than her. Her mother, who earned the title of Miss Virginia, entered the girl into many beauty pageants, even financing some of the pageants. The little girl won various titles such as America's Royal Miss, Colorado State All-Star Kids Cover Girl, Little Miss Colorado, among many others. On Christmas Day 1996, the family visited friends and returned early because they were traveling from Colorado to Michigan the next day. According to the testimony of the mother, Patsy, she got up at 5:50 in the morning on the 26th. When she went to the ground floor of her house, she found a note on the stairs, handwritten and 3 pages long. The text said that a gang had kidnapped little JonBenét, only 6 years old, and was asking for $118,000 for her ransom. The father told the police that the amount was almost identical to their Christmas prize the previous year. So he suspected that someone who knew them and had access to that information was involved in the case. The ransom note was very long. It took up 3 pages. The FBI told police that it was very rare for such a note to be written at a crime scene. The police believed that the note was prepared because it had no fingerprints other than those of the mother and the authorities who had touched it. Therefore, Detective Linda Arndt sent the paper for investigation. It was discovered that the paper used came from the Ramseys' notebook and pen, and that after writing it, they put it back in its original place. Likewise, indentations on the notebook indicated that the criminals had made several attempts. From this, it was deduced that either they had written it or that the criminals had taken enough time to write the 3-page text inside the house, with the risk of being surprised before finishing. The only people who were there the night of the girl's death were her mother, father, and brother. The ransom note stated that they weren't to contact anyone, but Patsy called the authorities at 5:52 and also called family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the emergency call and arrived at Ramsey's home within 3 minutes. They conducted a cursory search of the home but found no sign of forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement and came to a door closed with a wooden latch. He stopped for a moment in front of the door but walked away without opening it. French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnapper. Since the latch was closed, it was a location he ruled out. Detective Linda Arndt asked the father to thoroughly search the house, looking for anything out of the ordinary. John began searching, accompanied by Fleet White, a family friend. 8 hours later, John opened the basement door that Officer French had overlooked and found his daughter's lifeless body in one of the rooms. The girl had suffered a skull fracture from a blow to the head and had been strangled. She had a nylon cord around her wrists and neck. Her torso was covered by a white sheet, and her mouth was covered with duct tape. John removed the tape from the corpse's mouth and tried to untie the rope around her arms, which later made it difficult to study the evidence of the crime. John picked up the girl's body and carried it upstairs. When JonBenét was transported, the crime scene was further contaminated and all evidence was altered for the forensic team. What for some was the act of a desperate father, for others was a way to destroy the crime scene and evidence. It was also mentioned on many occasions that the house had been visited without respecting any protocol by several people, such as family and friends who were also there throughout the morning and who contaminated evidence. Each of the Ramseys provided writing, blood, and hair samples to police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours. And Burke was also interviewed within the first few weeks after JonBenét's death. The alleged kidnappers who had left the note never gave any signs again. The girl's official cause of death was strangulation. For this purpose, a medieval torture method called garrote was used, which consists of tightening a rope around the neck while trailing a piece of wood, which in this case was the handle of a paintbrush. Her skull had a crack as a result of several bruises, and she had brain trauma. There was no evidence of abuse, although it couldn't be ruled out since they found an injury in her intimate area. The autopsy also revealed the remains of pineapple, which the girl had eaten a few hours before her death. In photographs of the house taken the day the body was found, a bowl of pineapple could be seen on the kitchen table with a spoon inside. However, neither John nor Patsy remembered putting that bowl there or giving the youngest pineapple. In their analysis, the police found the 9-year-old brother's fingerprints on the bowl. But the Ramseys have always maintained that Burke slept through the night until they woke him up, which was several hours after the police arrived. From the beginning of the investigation, the authorities' attention was drawn to the defensive attitude that the girl's parents had adopted and their refusal to collaborate with the police. They also considered strange their private hiring of 2 criminal lawyers and a public relations agent who handled their contacts with the press. A theory that was circulated at that time was that the mother had hit the daughter in a fit of rage and had strangled her to cover up what had happened. However, Patsy had no known attacks of uncontrolled anger in her medical history. It is said that the strangulation could have been a red herring to hide other elements of the crime. Likewise, her brother Burke, who had always lived in the shadow of his famous sister, was also considered a suspect, even though he was only 9 years old at the time of the murder. Although the family claimed that the 2 kids had a good relationship, in the summer of 1994, Burke accidentally hit his sister in the face with a golf club while playing bat. The minor's left cheek had to be reconstructed by a plastic surgeon. Another clue that pointed to the boy's guilt was a phrase he had said to his psychologist 13 days after his sister died. "Now I'm getting my life back." Another theory that circulated was that the father had abused the minor and together they had covered it up. In 1998, the grand jury voted to indict the parents, but prosecutor Alex Hunter refused to sign the indictment, saying the evidence was insufficient. The audience in the room thought that the result had been inconclusive. And in 2002, the statute of limitations on the grand jury charges expired. These votes to charge the Ramseys weren't publicly revealed until October 25, 2013, when previously sealed court documents were released. It came to light that the grand jury did want to press charges and accuse the family. In 2002, the district attorney's successor, Mary Lacy, took over the police investigation of the case and pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the murder. In 2003, it was discovered that there were traces of DNA on the girl's clothing that belonged to an unknown man. Each of the family's DNA had been excluded from this match. In 2008, the prosecutor sent the Ramseys a letter of apology for having them as suspects for so many years, declaring that their accusation was dismissed and publicly exonerated them. Patsy died of ovarian cancer at age 49 in 2006, 2 years before she was found innocent. However, others, such as former Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner, disagreed, pointing to the DNA as a small piece of evidence that wasn't proven to have any connection to the crime. In February 2009, Boulder police dropped the district attorney's case and reopened the investigation. However, the new prosecutor also didn't pursue the guilt of the minor's family. The police chief even said in an interview that the DNA trail was not enough proof that a stranger had committed the crime. However, they blamed him for having a fixation on blaming the Ramseys, and that by not being able to solve the crime, they were trying to use false theories. For this reason, it was decided not to call a trial against them again. The other theory of JonBenet's death was that it was someone unknown. Police and prosecutors followed Intruder leads from an unidentified boot mark left in the basement room where the girl's body was found. Early suspects included neighbor Bill McReynolds, who used to dress up as Santa Claus, Linda Hoffman-Pugh, the family's former housekeeper, and a man named Michael Helgoff, who died shortly after JonBenét's death. Hundreds of DNA tests were performed to find a match, but all of their charges were dismissed. Lou Smith, a detective on the case, supported the intruder theory. On the night of the crime, there were 2 windows that were left slightly open to allow electrical wires from outside Christmas lights to pass through, a broken window in the basement, and a door without a key. Smith's theory was that someone had entered the house through the broken basement window. This was criticized and rejected because there were intact cobwebs on the window and also on the steel grille. In addition, all the plants and vegetation around it hadn't been damaged. Smith believed the intruder had used a stun gun on the girl and then taken her to the basement. Believing the Ramseys were innocent, Smith resigned from the investigation on September 20th, 1998, 5 days after the grand jury against the family was convened. In this case, there was also no shortage of false confessions from people who pleaded guilty. However, it turned out that they weren't them. What reason was there for them to want to take responsibility for a crime they had not committed? John Mark Carr, a 41-year-old primary school teacher, was arrested in Bangkok in 2006 when he falsely confessed to murdering the little girl. He claimed he had drugged her, abused her, and accidentally killed her. Sometime later, he changed his name to Alexis Valoran Rake after coming out as a trans woman. In her confession, Alexis had provided only basic facts that were public knowledge and didn't provide convincing details. Her statement of having drugged the little girl was also questioned because the autopsy indicated that no such substances were found in her body. Finally, it was shown that Alexis' DNA samples did not match that found in the minor's body. Another of the false confessions was that of the criminal Gary Oliva, who pleaded guilty. Daily Mail TV reported this by exclusively revealing letters written by Oliva to a former high school classmate named Michael Vale. Vale went to the police after receiving letters written from prison that said, "I never loved anyone like I loved JonBenét, but I let her escape, broke her head, and watched her die. It was an accident." But neither that nor Oliva's self-incriminating confession, nor the fact that they found magazine clippings that he had saved where the little girl was hanging out, gave rise to the police taking action against him, apart from saying that he was a suspect. The DNA found on the little girl's underwear did not match his. And among so many varied theories, the little girl's case didn't escape urban myths either. In 2014, YouTuber Dave Johnson uploaded a video, viewed millions of times, in which he claimed that the little beauty queen hadn't died, but had been hidden to later become a superstar. These theories said that it would be the singer Katy Perry today. Katy's date of birth debunks this conspiracy hypothesis. But this hypothesis was followed by many at the time. In a CBS documentary miniseries, a group of experts evaluated the case. Family friends also appeared in it, and even the 911 operator who answered Patsy's call. The interior of the mansion was also reconstructed in real size, in order to achieve an adequate reconstruction of the events. CBS promoted the premiere of the miniseries with a trailer that promised to provide a certainty that would turn the case around. After the end of the miniseries, several American media and the rest of the world were surprised with headlines that claimed, based on the documentary, that the person responsible for the little girl's death was her own brother, Burke. It was theorized that Burke may have hit his sister over the head with a heavy object, such as a flashlight, after she had stolen a piece of pineapple from his bowl, and probably without intending to kill her. They suggested that the ransom letter was an attempt by her parents to cover up their son's guilt. Burke's attorney filed defamation lawsuits against CBS, the show's producers, and several of its participants. Dr. Phil, a famous American television therapist, interviewed Burke Ramsey himself just a week before the premiere of the documentary miniseries. There, Burke recounted the injustice that had been committed to his family. He described as absurd the hypothesis that his sister had died at the hands of one of his parents or himself, and said that his suspicion remained the same as always, that an unknown criminal had killed his sister. During the interview, he remained smiling, even in moments of high tension, such as when Dr. Phil asked him if he had killed JonBenét, or when the girl's funeral was discussed, which generated great attacks from people in the media and networks. However, Dr. Phil immediately came to his defense, saying that that smile that seemed inappropriate was a nervous tic, which was detected at all times when he spoke. Will we ever know what really happened that night? JonBenet's remains are in the Atlanta cemetery, next to her mother, Patsy. Almost 30 years have passed since the fateful Christmas night in which someone took her life, and her crime remains a mystery in one of the most followed cases in the entire history of the United States. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, and if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!